3 test matches between South Africa and Ireland. South Africa just holding on with their line under siege to win this test match by 19 points to 13, and so break the deadlock, with Ireland having achieved their first victory on South African soil against the Springboks in match 1 in Cape Town. South Africa squaring it last week in Johannesburg, and now taking the series by 2 matches to 1. Onan Kamani is ready with the post-match presentation.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Spot on. The series win for South Africa, but what a test series it was from the get-go in Cape Town. Ireland were good value right till the end. Our Casalaga man of the match, JP Peterson. JP, please come through. Let's have a chat. JP, congrats for your man of the match. A very slow start to the series, but you finished strong today.
Yes, definitely a slow start. Yeah, it's a new team, new combinations, and new coaching staff. So it took us a while to execute the game plan, but it will take longer than that. We're just in a building state. That's what we said. So just need the people to be patient with us, and we need the support. But great character through the whole series, coming back from Cape Town, and so unbelievable 2 games in Joburg and today.
What was the biggest lesson for this group of players in this very tough series against Ireland?
Yeah, the biggest lesson is definitely for guys that playing. Most of them play the first test match, so they will realize there's a massive difference between Super Rugby and Test Rugby, and yeah, their eyes open up in Newlands, and they experience it. But it's all about showing character. They're good enough to play Test Rugby, so we asked coach asked everybody to put their hands up, and they put their hands up.
Job well done for your efforts for man of the match, courtesy of the sponsor Casalaga. Nick Skyder, General Manager, will present you with your prize. Job well done, JP Peterson. Now losing captain. Job well done, JP Peterson, and hopefully score more tries in the green and gold. And thank you. Now Rory Best. Rory, it was such great value all the way. Firstly, thank you for gracing us with presence. It was a great test match from the get-go in Cape Town. Did you thoroughly enjoy the tour?
Yeah, look, it's been obviously a great series. It's been a really, really tough series. It's exactly what we thought it would be, in that nothing was ever given easily. We knew we had to defend really well, and look, they're a top side. We came here to win a series. We've fallen short now twice, but I think when you look at the 6 points in every game, it speaks volumes for how tight the games have been. We were obviously inches there at the end, like they were inches there at the end in Cape Town, and look, that's Test Rugby, and look, our boys have fought valiantly, and we've really put everything in. Unfortunately, just in the last 2 tests, the Springboks have just been a little bit more clinical, and certainly tonight the set piece wasn't what we'd wanted, and we knew they'd come after us at Scrum after last week, and unfortunately they didn't disappoint us.
You came to South Africa without 8 of your top players. Some youngsters came and put their hands. What is your message to some of the guys that they got a chance to be part of the team?
Yeah, look, a lot of people wrote us off before we arrived here, but there's some great young talent coming through, and if you look at the age profile of this squad, there's a lot of guys that with not a lot of experience, but they're very exciting, talented players. They've got a taste of it now. There's boys at home to come back in. We'll take our holidays and we'll build into the next time we come together. Will be a really tough series in the autumn, but look, I think hopefully the future for Irish rugby is very bright with the talent that we have here as well as the talent at home. But ultimately we still feel that we're good enough to win series like that, and we'll eventually take a look back on why we didn't.
I can assure you that the rugby world knows that someday Ireland will come through. Job well done. You're a great tourist. We thoroughly enjoyed the test, and good way you go forward in strength.
Cheers, thanks very much.
Now Springbok captain and winning captain Adrian Strauss. Job well done today. Feeling pleased?
And yeah, very happy. Very tough game and a tough series, but happy to get the win. Grinded it out a bit, especially in the last couple of minutes. The guys really defended well, so proud of that. And yeah, good to get the win.
You led at half-time for the first time. Surely you're not going to let that go, were you?
No, we weren't going to let that go. And but like I said, tough game and a tough series, and great support throughout the week. Again, unconditional support and great at the stadium today. Great energy. So thank you to everyone that came out and supported us.
Adrian, we got the result at the end. What were some of the valuable lessons learned from this 3-test tough very tough test matches?
I think composure in test match rugby will always be important, building your innings and doing the hard yards. I think the forwards really put up their hands tonight and did the hard yards up front. But decision making again, something we'll work on and build on.
Well, job well done and congratulations. I'm sure South Africa backed you all the way today. And once again, thank you for showing great support and a great brand the Springboks are.
Thanks, Owen. Appreciate it. Enjoy it.
Well, it certainly was an enjoyable test match to watch. Not the most enjoyable finish to the match. It was incredibly tense towards the end, but well done to the Springboks, eventually running out winners over the Irish and couldn't get closer. Somebody said to me that there's another de Klerk who's up for the Nobel Peace Prize because had Faf not made that tackle, it would have been war. Nick Mallet?
Well, my respect to the people who chose JP as man of the match, but for me, I thought Faf was absolutely superb today. I think he saved 2 certain tries. I mean, you can never call him small again because he managed to jump 6 foot to intercept one pass that had that gone to the Irish player, they would have certainly scored. And then right at the end of the game, he made the most ferocious tackle on the Irish player by coming in off his man and hit him back and allowed us an opportunity to turn the ball and finish the game. Sure. So Faf, but listen, the whole team defended really well at the end. But I just thought that he was superb. He had one poor kick where the forwards got were offsides, and that was about the only mistake he made in the game. He was superb. Yeah. Just have a look at the end of this game. This is the period where we were sitting there from 78 minutes to 80 minutes, and they were literally 10 yards from our line. It was really nerve-wracking stuff, and I must admit that the team stuck it out. They defended well, but a lot of credit to Ireland for making this test series a fantastically competitive one, and this team will have learnt a lot from these 3 games.
Shimmy, we've been talking over the course of 3 games just how organised the Irish are. Look at that.
That's the tackle.
You've got to give him credit. That was wonderful. I mean, our hearts were in our throats at this stage of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see there's, I think, a bit of a shift in defensive mindset, because when we were competing for the ball, we got penalised quite heavily. So the guys actually let the ball go and they just actually fanned out and they came up a bit. But really some fantastic work from Faf de Klerk. The decision-making. It's one of those, if he had waited, he could have said there was an overlap. It wasn't my mistake, but he backed his call and he went up there and made the tackle. And rightly so, man on ball, he killed the ball, he killed the movement, and that was the difference. That gives us the series win. And, we'll take it. We were nervous in studio. Probably a lot of people in the country nervous, but well done to the Springboks.
But well done to the Irish as well. They came here, Nas, and you said it while we were off air. They didn't come to try and match us. They came to win the series.
Yeah, and they tried. But overall, I thought, we just mentioned it, maybe the 3 internationals play a much better part. We had in the past, we had one internationals or 2 internationals. The 3 is making it a little bit more special. We looked at New Zealand, you look at Australia, you look at South Africa. But the way the Irish played, and I'm glad that especially a number of the newcomers now realise what's international rugby all about, because it's not going to be easy in the Four Nation, the Rugby Championship. And I believe this was absolutely fantastic from the Irish, because it's like, best the captain mentioned, before they arrived with all the injuries, we didn't really thought that they were that competitive, and I thought they really contributed to a fantastic series. But if you think about it, the Irish always been a tough opponent. They're not shying away from pressure, they're not standing back, and they made a game of it today. And I thought really it was some of the better 80 minutes rugby that I've seen in a long time.
This was a wonderful try, Ashwin.
The creativity from an Elton Jantjies, and the execution of this kick, and this is sometimes what is needed in a game, where the margins are so tight, especially as to what. And this was right on the verge of halftime. And JP, his positioning on that kick, he was right in position, running onto the ball. Body was perfect, and you could see the overhead catch of that ball. So it was an unbelievable finish to very creative move from Elton to understand the space, know where JP is. So I think also, well done to JP on man of the match. He had a fantastic game. But, I want to also say that a player like Faf, really the performance he put in today. But just, I think here, our tight five, the way they played today, the scrumming, in the build-up we talked about the scrumming and how it's been in the past 2 tests. Then they came out in the way that this pack of forwards just gelled together, worked together in the scrumming. I think that set the tone for South Africa, and the performance that we've seen from all the players, the way they came. Sammy, we highlighted in the build-up, right from the scrums, how the Irish were preparing themselves before the hit and how they were in a better body position, but then the Boks came and just delivered a phenomenal performance at scrum time.
Yeah, and the key thing with the scrums, it's the one part where you can't hide. Actually, it's direct contact. It's like a boxing match, and we had them there. And what I like is we kept our foot on the throat. When the reserves came on, Stephen Kitsoff and Reeling Ace's first scrum, penalty exact. So we kept it, and the consistency that I mentioned before the game, we managed to get that today. It's taken 2 games, but the Boks scrum definitely today dominated completely.
But Shimmy, if you look at South African teams, when we scrum well, it's like we're playing well. It's like we love scrumming, and if we start doing it well, then it's like there's a lot of confidence, and psychologically we're much stronger. And go and have a look when we start struggling in the scrums. That's when we fall a little bit by the wayside.
I think, if you go back and you look at the first test match, where our scrums were very loose, the players hadn't played together. It was obviously a team finding itself. They were dominated in that first test in the scrums. Second test was 50-50, and when the replacements came on, we managed to dominate. So we spoke about the replacements making a big impact. But in this game, the first half we won 2 penalties, and the second half. So with 2 separate front rows, I thought Kitsoff's was a very, very good 30 minutes. He made a number of tackles and scrummed well. Malherbe was better than he was in both first tests. So it's just a question of those tight 5 understanding each other better, I think, and getting a bit of cohesion in their scrummaging.
We touched on Faf de Klerk, and I'd like us to continue talking about it because there was an incident in the first half that we never got a chance to go back to. And there was a lot of reaction on it on social media, and it had to do with the quick tap that he took, and a lot of people suggesting that the tackler wasn't away, or didn't clear, wasn't 10 meters away. That was Ian Henderson who took him down. But guys, talk us through this, because technically Glenn Jackson was correct.
You see,
I'll touch it for you. And there you
thanks.
go.
Well, if you have a look at Faf here, he takes the tap and he runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After 5 meters, everyone's put back on sides. So even though Henderson is quite right, everyone's quite right, he wasn't 10 yards back. Once your scrum off, once your tap player has run 5 meters, one could argue that his steps aren't quite as long as 5 meters. But he had run 5 paces, and the referee decided, look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he gets tackled and stripped of the ball.
You could have given the forward part.
No. This law has always been there.
Yeah.
It's not
Except in 1981 in New Zealand with Clive Norley. That guy ran 7 yards, not even 5, 7.
Exactly.
So everybody knows. That's why you always say to the player closest to, let's say, Faf there, don't touch him. Let somebody from the back actually play him, but let him go 5 yards, and that's why it's a fair call.
Or you can run next to him. Nice, you can actually run right next to him. Don't touch him. Once you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once he's run 5, you can play him. Even though you weren't 10 yards back, it's him running the 5 meters.
Precisely. So it's a good call, that, by the way. And I said to you, I think the reason why he did that, and it's the right call, is because he played the game himself.
Except, Nas, when that ball was ripped out of Faf's hands, it went towards Irish. So it was actually a rip forward. And it should have been scrummed down our ball, because the ball was ripped in a forward.
And they actually almost ended up scoring the other side. It was a turnover ball, so could have been a big turn there also.
Right, well, let's go back to the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, where we've got Owen Gumane standing by, I believe, with Bob Skinstad and Jean de Villiers. And guys, some crucial performances by key individuals, but we are talking about the most diminutive man on the field, Faf de Klerk, who had a wonderful game. And it's ironic, and Jean, I'm going to start with you on this one, because in the lead up to this test series, we were so worried about the lack of depth at number 9. So to see a number 9 come through at test level is, I think, utter relief for Alistair Coetzee.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I think Faf throughout the series has been fantastic. You know, he was probably one of the standout players in that first game, and last week also continued with that. Today, I think more of a thorough performance from him as well. Defensively, very good. His decision-making at 9 was good. Still not 100% performance. He still made some mistakes, and that'll take time. You know, that step up from Super Rugby up to Test match level. So probably that kick he kicked when we were on attack wasn't the right execution at that stage, and probably not the right choice as well. But again, he'll learn with time. So a much better performance by him, a much better performance by the team, and he gave fantastic direction to the team.
Bob, for you, what stood out from today's performance?
Well, I think, you know, if you look at what Faf did there, he made 2 crucial decisions, and I love it. You know, Jean said his decision making. I mean, you know, he's a small guy, and he you know, dived into the air to get 1 interception, and then the other was a tackle which we've actually seen him do in Super Rugby. He came off his wing, he made a spot tackle on Keith Earls, and he stopped a certain try. So, you know, I love the fact that he's contributing. He's upping the pace quite a lot, and he's getting the players around him a little bit more time on the ball. You know, he's very, very good at clearing those rucks and getting the ball to Yankees or whoever's running on attack. So there were lots of bits of the game that were very good. 1 or 2 small mistakes, like Jean said, and I think you know, the 2 mistakes that stick out for me were both off the boot. So that's something he can work on quite quickly. You know, the rest of the stuff, the natural ability is outstanding, and he's playing very well.
Bob, it's Ashwin. You know, as for the loose forwards played today, if you look at the Whiteley, Coetzee, Lowe versus Heaslip, Murphy and Stander, you know, what do you make between the 2, and what do you think of the performance of South African loose forwards, seeing that the tight 5 has laid such a wonderful foundation today?
Ash, I mean, it's a good question. We're very blessed in South Africa. We've had great loose forwards playing for South Africa for a long time. We've also had a lot of depth. I mean, we saw Jaco Kriel come on and, you know, in 10 minutes affected a lot on the game. But I think Coetzee had a game where, you know, probably wouldn't stand out to a lot of people in rugby, because he wasn't able to do what he did in Super Rugby and break away with the ball. But he was so nuggety on you know, defense. He was always either the assistant tackler or the guy who went low and made the initial tackle, and then he was there to at least slow the ball down a little bit. I mean, you know, Ireland had the ball for a lot of phases for a lot of time, and the loose forwards, for me, again, the decision making, the fact that they didn't give away penalties, although they were contesting at almost every ruck and breakdown, stood out. So, you know, hats off to Francois Lowe and Sia Coetzee, the way they did that. And then I thought Warren Whiteley added a lovely linking dimension to the game. You know, he carried it up from the back from some of those deep kickoffs. He was very good in the lineouts, and I like the way he covers the field. You know, he can often defend 2 or 3 players, and Ireland had 3-4 up on us a few times, and he was that inside defender, and he was tracking across. So it was a good performance from the loose forwards, if not one where one single person stood out. The Irish players were also good. CJ Stander, I thought, had a solid game. Heaslip's been good all tournament, but Murphy carried a lot more and tackled a lot more than we saw the first time he had a run out. So it was a great contest between 2 good loose trios.
Shimi, I've got a question for you. Interesting enough, I think we've all highlighted how Ireland were managed to put the pressure on the box with the ball retention. Defensively, what are the trends, and how do you manage to win the ball back? Because when they had the ball 20 plus phases, we're put under immense pressure. How does the team get the ball back?
Look, I thought we handled the pressure quite well, to be honest with you. You could see there was probably a message at halftime for the defensive coach. Because we were conceding a lot of defensive penalties at the breakdown, we decided not to contest. What is dangerous with that system is when a team offloads, then that's when they break you and get around you. But in terms of our defensive work, I thought we did well to actually show patience, composure, and the Irish came, and eventually, you know, they made a mistake, similar to what an England team does. You know, making that decision, do you stir at the breakdown or do you let them get the ball back? So I thought South Africa, even though we were forced to make a lot of tackles, our decision making was good because Ireland were trying to play for the penalty from then on.
Yeah, I still think, just Nick here, I still feel that we need to get off the line faster on defence, to put pressure on their ball carriers quicker. And also we should attack the ball in the tackle rather like Ireland do, so that we make sure that they win slower ball. You watch England, they were very, very effective against Australia with that tactic, and you also see New Zealand do it a lot. And I think our defence is reasonably passive still. It's well organised, but it's not aggressive enough. And the other thing, I think, in order to win turnovers, outside backs have to learn to counter-ruck. If you've got to try and isolate a guy out wide, and then your outside centre and wing and fullback must commit to counter ruck, and you can turn ball over there.
Yeah, and then it's also decision making. I think once a team's got wide rucks, you can get good line speed. Once the ruck's in the middle of the field, there's a blind side. Sometimes you might have to hover and wait a bit. But once you got a wide ruck, then you can get that line speed because you got the touch line and you generally have more numbers.
Jean, I'm glad the guys are bringing it up in terms of they feel at times we're very passive and defensively. What do players prefer out there?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on what you see in front of you. Obviously, like Shimi mentioned, that if there's a lot of guys running at you, then you have to be a little bit more passive and sort of cover the ground. But as Nick mentioned there, we can get off the line, put pressure on them, so get that first couple of steps, get off the line, check then, and then you can still move sideways. So I think it's already much better. I think what we saw today is more of a team effort than the individualistic efforts that we saw maybe in the first and second test. So we always knew that it would take time, and already if you take game one to where we are now, much better. We're winning, which is much better, but also just the team performance, scrumming, line-out, defensively more connected, and on attack, I thought our shape was much better. So, all in all, I think a lot of improvement.
I've got to say, from my point of view, I'll be interested in you guys in the studios. I thought the Irish backs were very classy tonight. And I'm agreeing with John. We defended well, if slowly, and you're right there, Nick. We sort of pressed up and drifted across a bit. But they had lovely little unders and overs lines and league sort of running lines. And I think a more fractured defence would have actually been split a few times. We mentioned in commentary twice, if Jackson had known there was an inside pass away, because they always had a following runner, a person who, if there was able to be an offload or something like that, either inside or outside, when we saw Payne doing it, it was incredible because he was getting the one-handed offloads away. They were very organised. Maybe that's because they've been together for 5 or 6 weeks, longer than the Springboks have, and we're going to need to be as good as that, if not better, to beat Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, because I also think that, even though, especially the midfield partnership is not that experienced together, they actually did well defending it. Those second-man plays, we get the second line of defence attacking you. Those are usually the most difficult ones to defend, whereas we were covering the inside, and I think purely just the attitude out there was so much better, and sometimes just by that you are defending much better.
Sean, Shimia, what's your take on our attack? I think you look at Australia, they struggled with this rush defence. It's tough to attack against the rush defence. The European teams use it week in, week out. From an attacking point of view now, what's the best way around it?
Yeah, look, there's a couple of ways you can approach it. What I did like from our attack today was that we shifted the ball a little bit. So it wasn't just one-off runners all the time. We were maybe passing to a forward, but that forward had the ability to shift the point of attack to the next guy running with a little bit more momentum. By doing that, you are boxing in more defenders and you are getting a little bit more momentum on attack. So already there's improvement from our point of view.
A guy sitting at home now, what you just said, Jean, at what stage do the teams earn that right to go wide? Because now all of a sudden, a player, when does he make that decision?
Yeah, look, attack is all about identifying space, assessing the situation, looking where the space is, and then being able to have the skill to get the ball into space, whether that is passing, whether that is kicking, or by whatever means. So, like I said, we're already better at it, but it'll take time for the team to gel and get used to the body language of the guys on your inside and outside.
Hola.
Well, thanks very much, guys. Hopefully we'll have time to get back to Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. And obviously there's still quite a lot to come. Let me start here, Ash, and I'm going to come with you, Nick, as well, as we look ahead. Ash?
I think for me what was good, we've talked about defence now, and for me the one thing that really stood out with the defence was the patience on defence, especially when we were on our own try line. And I think that in itself, to be able to be disciplined on defence and just patiently await till you get the opportunity to really attack the ball carrier, that to me was a good thing. And then on the attack, the different variations that we've seen today, the work rate both from our forwards, our loose forwards and tight forwards, and I think also the partnership between a Lionel Mapu and a Damon Dalin, them working together tonight. We've seen in a week how the outside backs as a three, how they work together. Vali Leroux, Ruan Kombrang, as well as JP Peterson. Now, while that came off both on attack as well as defence, I think moving forward, we have a lot to work with, and there's so much you can add to this formation, the way that the guys played this evening.
right up front, I said only 8 weeks to the day to go to the start of Rugby Championship. A lot of people I see on social media saying, oh, if it was the All Blacks, we would have been looking at a different type of result. Certainly are improvements needed, and Alistair's still got a lot of work to do.
Listen, I think what we must understand is that New Zealand are appreciably better than any other team in the world at the moment. And it's not a bad Wales side that went down there, and they just got cleaned up 3-0, and the last score, I think, was 46, whatever it was. So they're an outstanding team, and I think they're something like 8 points ahead of England, who's second, and we're third. But between the second place team and the 6th or 7th place team, there's very little difference. So, at the moment, we must concentrate on getting set to become second best. And then when we're second best, we must then start challenging to be the best. And I think some of the things on attack that I noticed today is that we were a little bit frenetic. With a young side, a lot of enthusiasm and but we were quite anxious. So we didn't show patience. A really confident team that understands each other. They don't push passes, and they understand when not to pass and when to pass, when to take it into contact. If they take it into contact, the guys on either side know it's their job to clean quickly. And you saw that the Irish side was well drilled and well organized. It'll take time for us to become as well drilled and well organized, in my view. But this is one area we should be able to have the patience to take it through 10, 12 phases so that we can put the opposition under pressure, because then our big ball carriers can maybe start winning penalties for us. And the other point was, we saw a great cross kick tonight, a great kick pass tonight. That was identified by Yankees, but probably also by JP Peterson, who was standing very wide, well outside Trimble today. And that information would have been passed to Elton, because the kick was absolutely spot on. Now, if you watch the Highlanders play, you watch the All Blacks play, a number of their tries come from offensive kicks, chips, grubbers, and that comes from good communication. So the ability of our outside backs to communicate to our halfbacks where the space is very, very important. I mean, this was absolutely perfect. That reminded me of the kick which Courtney Skosan scored, and Elton did an equally accurate kick. And then we've seen him also put little chips over the line for his centres. So the ability of Elton, we don't doubt his ability to kick it. Yeah. What we need is better communication from the outside backs to tell him when to kick it, because they can identify the space. It's very hard for Elton to identify the space when he's watching the ball, watching rush defenders. He needs information from outside in. And I think Lionel Mapu and Damien Dallander, as Jean said, are inexperienced centres and need a little bit more time and confidence to realise they're allowed to talk and communicate positively on the field. It's not talking for talking's sake. Yeah. It's talking to pass information to a key player in your team, your 10.
Taking exactly that point, Shimmy, and moving it forward. We spoke about, with Ashwin, moving ahead, looking ahead, improvements, Rugby Championship not too far away, combinations. These guys will eventually form, I suppose, a more experienced combination, but when do they get the chance to play together? This is the difficulty of the coach, because after this they go back to the unions, they get ready for Super Rugby's final 3 rounds of the regular season. Some guys will play in the playoffs. When do they get a chance to try and build the various combinations that don't exist currently? Yes, we know that there are 1 or 2, Faf and Elton, for instance. When do they get it together?
Look, I think, I suppose Alistair's going to be around and just working with the teams throughout to the end of Super Rugby. But we must also not underestimate how well coached this Irish team is. I mean, from their launches, from front football, what they did there on attack, some really smart stuff. They managed to nullify our maul. And the big worry for me when we started with Stays was, what is Joe Schmidt going to come up with? This Irish team, we didn't know a lot about them. Now we know there's some good youngsters. They're well coached. And I think it's a good win. Considering we lost to 14-minute Newlands, we've done well. Now it's getting that continuity. So for Alistair now, it's working with the Super Rugby coaches, coming together, maybe having a camp or whatever, depending on the outcome of the sort of the semis or the playoffs for Super Rugby, and trying to get that continuity. The more time this Bok team spends together, the better they will be. You look at the changes, some of these guys getting their first opportunities, and no one looked lost. I mean, you mentioned it earlier on about we weren't sure who our scrum off was. Well, we've got a good one now. So I think that's the positive side of it. And some of the glimpses we saw, that 17 minutes or 20 minutes at Ellis Park, the defensive work here, it's positive for the Boks. But now it's about building on it and the guys playing together a bit more.
Yeah, but we're talking about going forward, but it also depends on who's going to pick going forward. Because if you look at Warren Whiteley, it's totally a different player than Dwayne Vermeulen. So it's a different kind of game you're going to talk about. And it looked a little bit like today, we're adapting a little bit more to the new style, where Whiteley is sort of fitting more the role, the way we think of going forward. And then Jaco Kriel, when he came in, he had a fantastic turnover, and he's in their faces the whole time. And so it's also going to be quite interesting, because if you think about it, Ireland had 20 faces, but it was a one-on runner the whole time, normally like we played. Yep. No really surprises. That's why I believe we defended well, because no surprises. But New Zealand's not a team that like the one-on runner. They're going to have 2 or 3 options, and that makes defence a lot more difficult. So that's where we need to think what we're going to do selection-wise, because selection-wise brings something else to the table. And I think we've seen from the first international to the third one now that certain players bring certain or extra to the table.
Another point also, X, when we talk about moving forward, I think this test series for South Africa was, invaluable if you look in terms of moving forward, the lessons we learned from this test series, where we found with Ireland, they came out here underdogs, none of us expected them to do so well, and yet they came in the way that they performed. They put us under pressure in terms of their attack, their continuity, their ball retention, the kicking game that they executed, almost to perfection. We saw on defence how well orchestrated their defensive structures were. So that's now a lot of lessons for the coach to go back and dissect, because when they review the tapes, look at the way that we played, there's a lot of things that will come out that they can take into the Rugby Championship that will definitely assist this team in preparing themselves as to how we will play during the Rugby Championship.
Yeah, that's quite true. Also, I think our draw is quite favourable this year, because we start off with Argentina. Now, we remember too well that disappointing loss against Argentina, but it is preferable, I think, to play against Argentina home and away prior to playing against New Zealand and Australia. You can build towards New Zealand and Australia with those games against Argentina. I'm not underestimating Argentina at all. They're very similar to Ireland, and their test team beat Ireland at the World Cup. So it is going to be another challenge. But there's no doubt we are capable of beating Argentina home and away, and then going into those games against Australia and New Zealand with 4 wins, because we've won in Johannesburg, we've won now, we beat Argentina twice. Winning momentum is crucial to getting confidence. And for a coach, it's much easier to select from a side that has won, even though they've won narrowly. At least you can go with confidence into the next game. As I've said, New Zealand are still, I think, a side beyond any team, including England at the moment. I still think New Zealand are a real step ahead of everyone else. But we're in the process of trying to climb up the ladder, and to get to number 2 in the world.
And it's also, it's a nice thing we've built capacity now. There's question marks over certain players, Whiteley, Jaco Kriel. They've all been capped now. They're all part of the system. Now there's competition in the squad. And I think it's a good, healthy position to be in. As long as there's competition, it will up the standard throughout the whole squad. For sure.
The one thing is Rudy Page didn't get on. So Faf had to play. He got on the first game, I think, in Newlands.
He did.
But we've all seen how well Faf played in that game. And one has a tendency not to want to get Faf off the field when he's playing as well as that, given the way he saved a couple of tries right at the end. I think it's disappointing that we haven't had a chance to see whether Rudy Page is the next one or whether we need to look for someone else.
But Nick, just quickly, in a game like today, it was absolutely the right call to keep Faf on the field.
Of course,
and I think sometimes in the past we've made the mistake where if it's such a tight game, some players need to stay on the field for 80 minutes.
Well, let's hear from the Springbok coach, and obviously a team in flux. So many players who are still going to return maybe into the Springbok fold. There's Marcel Coetzee, Jan Serfontein, Pat Lambie. I wrote on a couple of names. Andre Pollard, Malcolm Marx, overseas-based players. He's got options when looking ahead. But for now, I'm sure he'll take the win, and particularly given that it was in front of his home crowd.
Alistair, congratulations, a series win done. Some really heart-stopping moments in those final 10 minutes.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Matthew. The big thing for us, it was important to win tonight. And on top of that, to win the series at home. You know, after a start whereby we lost the first test, 19-3 down, having to defend a line for 3-4 minutes, and that's just testimony of the character that we have in the team. Inexperience, yes, but big hearts, big character, and you know, great vibe in the team. You know, players were prepared really to put their bodies on the line today. They were switched on. You know, this is a massive test series. The Irish were really good. You know, they played to the bitter end, and they really gave themselves a massive chance. I think there are lots of improvements in the team, but also a lot of things to work on still. But what a start. I'm really pleased.
You had to live off scraps for much of that game, though. Not much quality possession in the areas of the field that you would have liked it.
Yeah, correct. That's how I suppose Test rugby goes. You know, one week you have a lot of ball and keep ball in hand and you do well. This week was a battle of set piece again. I think we scrummed outstandingly in the first half. Our line-out work again, it's just something that we need to get going with our mauling. Definitely an area where we can improve. And then, you know, in spurts, our tactical kicking game did put them in stages under pressure, and then we played a wee bit too much rugby in our own half. But again, you know, discipline, conceding a lot of penalties, a few things that we need to sort out. With the line speed that you really want to implement, you know, some players are just doing it from an offside positions here and there, but unlucky. But that's something that we really need to work on. It's by applying pressure and then releasing the pressure by ourselves, you know. So, but it's a great learning experience for most of the players, and they were unbelievable performances, especially a player like Faf. De Klerk, he was unbelievable and saved us, you know, coming off the line, one intercept out wide, and then another ball and all tackle, you know, 2-3 meters from the line. So unbelievable how the players pitched today and looked for that intrinsic motivation and trying to be motivated, you know, externally. So that was my chat this week. There were personal battles, and you've got to make sure you make it personal, and the little battles you win. That is how you play Test match rugby, and I think the players responded really well.
They certainly did, and what a way for the coach to bounce back, because after that first one, he would have felt the pressure, Nick. Not a great position to start off from, but certainly building. Of course it's not. Any time you lose with the Springboks, you're under pressure. The Springbok supporters, quite rightly, would like a winning team, and especially a winning team at home. So as a Springbok coach, it must have been, you know, the worst possible start for Alistair. He, you know, playing at Newlands, he knew Newlands well. Obviously, the team didn't perform that day, and there were a lot of question marks in the second test. But the team came through really well in the last 20 minutes, and this was a very close test match. Let's not beat about the bush. It wasn't as though we dominated Ireland today. Thank goodness Elton Jantjies' kicking was so good today. I think he only missed one kick today, he was very accurate. And Combrink's kick from 50 metres was very important in the win. So it was, listen, we'll take the win, but there's still a lot of progress. We have to make a lot of progress before we're going to start competing properly against New Zealand. I think, you know, Australia are in a worse position than us at the moment, but because they've lost 3 in a row against England. But you know, we can't hope that they are going to just fall over in the regular championship.
They will come back. Australia will definitely come back. I mean. But again, you talk about how, you know, with Test rugby, just those margins. You know, I mean, Faf de Klerk misses that intercept or that tackle, we could be singing a different tune now, you know. So at the end of the day, we've won the series. But you're right, Nick. I think it's just Argentina's the next game. We focus on that, win that, and then you look at the next one. Let's park New Zealand at the moment. Their time will come, but Argentina's the next test, and we focus on that.
Well, I'll take you back even before that, Shimmy, because after this we probably will park the Springboks for a little while, because Super Rugby returns. There's 3 rounds of the regular season still to come in Vodacom Super Rugby, and this is the action from next weekend. What a match to kick things off again. The Chiefs up against the Crusaders. That should be exciting. Brumbies will then take on the Reds. And those are the 2 Friday fixtures. On Saturday morning, Sunwolves against the Waratahs, Hurricanes at home to the Blues, Rebels versus the Stormers, who now hit the road. They've got 2 weeks on the road. The Toyota Cheetahs will then host the Western Force, the Lions against the Sharks. That's a really incredibly key clash. Southern Kings versus Highlanders. So guys who were friends and mates today will be foes next week. And to wrap things up, a late kickoff, the Jaguares up against the Vodacom Bulls. And of course, 8 weeks later, the Springboks will be back on the field and we'll have green ties on again. But gents, it was really exciting, maybe a little bit too exciting, but we certainly enjoyed it. Thank you guys very much for being in studio. Thank you at home for joining us. Well done to the Springboks and to Alistair Coetzee. It was a baptism of fire for the coach, but what a way to bounce back, what a way to finish off the series, and we were thoroughly entertained and amazed by the skill levels of the Irish, who certainly deserved that first win in Cape Town. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.